My name is Liat, compulsive eater and bulimic, grateful compulsive eater and bulimic. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day off the gray sheet, call it into my sponsor. Don't eat in between no matter what. And abstinence is the most important thing in my life. And that has been true. It's been true since the 6th of November, 2020. But also I came into Gray Sheet on the 24th of March, 2020. So it has been the most important thing in my life since then. But, you know, life happens. The disease happens. And I thought a lot about what I wanted to share because it feels really monumentous and meaningful to be here in person, like actually experiencing the energy of everybody live. And I thought about seeing people in person because I haven't been able to do that abstinently ever until very recently. And as my higher power is just so cheeky, goodness, I mean, just like a little trickster, just a prankster in the most loving but hilarious and fun way, I found out that I had to go back home to America 1 week before I had to go back home to America. And as an obsessive perfectionist, I would have liked to have found out about a year in advance so that I could have planned, prepared, protected, and prayed about it. But in fact, of course, that's not what happened. And it is a miracle that it didn't happen that way because I did not need to do anything. In fact, the less that I did, the better. So we found out that we had to go a week ahead of time. And the very first thing I did was I got my second COVID jab. Like the clinic, the walk-in clinic was closing in half an hour and it took 6 minutes to get there. So that was put my shoes on was the first thing I did. And then I got in the car and then I got my jab. And I was actually a day early. So you're not supposed to get your jab until you've had 8 weeks. But I explained, you know, like I'm a healthcare provider and blah, blah, and they're like, okay, it's fine. You're 1 day early. It's fine. Miracle that they said, okay. Because when does the bureaucracy in the UK ever bend the rules? They don't. That was a higher power thing. And we were also very lucky that we managed to find a pet sitter. We haven't been able to find a good pet sitter in England, and I've been here for 3 years. It just happened, right? That's an HP thing. But none of this is possible without Gray Sheet, because the first thing I would have done in a normal circumstance, normal because it was what I did for 29 years, is I would have just binged my head off and purged. And maybe that would have been the time that my heart stopped and I died, and I never would have made it to America. So that whole week was a lot of outreach, a lot of going to meetings, a lot of talking to all of you, a lot of just handing things over and praying. And the night before, I'm also afraid to fly. And so an 8-hour flight from Heathrow to Newark was probably the thing I was most afraid of. And so the night before, it was like 2 a.m. We just finished packing and we were leaving in about 4 hours. And I just took out my 2-way prayer notebook and I just said to my higher power, you know, like, you win. And I just got back the most loving permission to just get into the passenger seat. I'm not want to get into the passenger seat. I'm not even allowed to drive in England, but for a very long time I still drove because I like to be the driver. I like to be in control. Like, this is not a metaphor. This is a reality. I freaking love because I don't like when other people drive me. I don't like when other people fly me. I think I do the best job. And so I just said to my higher power, fine, you know, I'm going to probably have a heart attack out of the panic that I'm experiencing in this moment. I just have to hand it over to you. So I did. And it was a totally miraculous 24 hours. We got to the airport and the people at the airport were like joyful and so helpful. When does that ever happen? And I needed to have an extra fat. Of course, like most of our fats are liquid. So I just walked around the airport and there was this like really
5 minutes, yeah.
Thank you. In the airport, there was this really sort of wanky shop that happened to have a little pot of abstinent fat. And so I put that in my bag, ready to go. I had everything I needed. I'd already made backup. The only thing I was missing was fat. And got on the airplane. And the scariest thing, apart from takeoff and landing, was that my husband's green card had expired and we didn't know whether they were going to let us in at the border. And I got this sense while I was flying, and I was praying the whole time, that my husband didn't want to get in. So like halfway through the flight, I turned to him and started arguing with him. Like, listen, Dan, you have to want to get in or you're going to mess this up for us. You know, HP's listening, and if you don't want it, you're not going to get it. Like, we're not going to get it. And I don't want to be with my family without you. I can't handle it. I'm going to lose my abstinence. You know, I'm panicking, like full flight from reality. And, you know, he tried to convince me that he wanted to get in, but it really didn't matter either way. And the only way I calmed myself down was I thought about all the delicious abstinent food I'd had Amazon delivered to my parents' house and was waiting for me for dinner. But really, for me, Grey Sheet is about abstinence, and it's about not purging and not binging and eating what I say and being on it. It is about the meal plan. It's about the allergy, but way more than that. For me, it's about the mental obsession and the spiritual malady. And sometimes I think maybe I could have this. Maybe, you know, I'm not allergic to X, Y, Z. And then I think, but I am allergic to not having the support of all of you and this program and this way of life. And so I witnessed in the rest of the day that just rolled out in front of me. We got through immigration and it was fine. It was fine. I mean, there was a teeny hiccup that we later had to address, but like in the grand scheme, it was a miracle. And then I got a text from my sister-in-law saying that my nephew maybe had COVID. So she needed my mom to go babysit for my other nephew, which meant that we arrived at the house empty. That was an HP thing, because to arrive at my childhood home and to be bombarded with my mother's excitement at seeing me for the first time in 20 months, that would have been too much, a little too much. Instead, no one was home, came inside, took a shower, changed my clothes, prayed, got myself to my sister-in-law's house. And wait, nope, that's not what I did. I had dinner. I just had a peaceful dinner with my husband. So delicious. I mean, a number 20 meal. And it was my first abstinent meal I had ever in my childhood home. First time I ever had a meal I grew up in that house, you know, like I lived in that house. My mom grew up in that house. Maybe the first person since the house was built to have a spiritually surrendered meal. And then I went to my sister-in-law's. I lived 15 minutes away, so the drive was just a nice grounding experience with my partner. And he's in recovery now too, thanks to Grey Sheet. And so we just handed everything over. And when we got there, it was just wonderful. This was the very first time that I ever spent time with my mom and my sister. I love my sister-in-law, she's great, but my mom and my sister, that it was just fine. And in fact, it was wonderful. And the long story short of this is that things have unfolded in such a way that we're actually going back in January for 6 weeks and staying with my parents. And we're all really excited for it. And I just wouldn't have believed that that was possible. And genuinely, it's not possible if I'm not abstinent. None of this is possible if I'm not abstinent. So, you know, I have 5 minutes left, and I told you my story that I was planning on telling you. So I'm just going to talk about why Grey Sheet's the greatest thing ever. And maybe I'll talk a little bit about my experience in Grey Sheet. So, and in the food, really, I was definitely born a compulsive overeater. I was also probably born a bulimic, but I didn't actually learn how to do the bulimic part until way later in life. And I used to say to people, like, if I knew how to purge, I would. I think bulimia would be so much fun.
So that's 10 minutes, yeah.
Thank you, Melanie. What kind of person says bulimia sounds like so much fun? But it really did, and like it still does sound like fun, I'll be honest. I know that it is the depths of hell in reality. But that's because I have a little bit of malady. And I'm really like, I'm grateful for the weird part of my brain that thinks bulimia sounds like fun, because it also gives me a lot of other gifts. And yeah, I mean, I've eaten in a way that I don't think a lot of people can relate to, because it was so destructive and it was so much like a meth addiction, you know? Like when I try to share my experience of strength and hope with the majority of compulsive overeaters and even bulimics and anorexics, they're like, oh, I don't think that I am that bad. I'm gonna just slowly back away because you sound like a crazy person. And I think what it is it's a testament to how powerful GreySheet is, that I can go from that depth of insanity to a life beyond my wildest dreams. And I can say that actually it was a little hard being at home for one reason, which is that my sister, who's 2 years older than me, is so angry at how well my life is going. And like, while that is a bit of a spiritual minefield, and I'm sure my higher power has plans for that, it's also a reflection of how well my life is going, that someone can look on it and be like, no, that's not fair. You shouldn't have all of that. I have such a, you know, we say we get a life beyond our wildest dreams. And I really, if I can just be spiritually like neutral in the moment, I can look around and say, yeah, that's really it. You know, of course I have striving and discontent, and there's many things ahead of me that I hope for, or would like to change. If you had told me 5 years ago that this is the life I'd never left New Jersey, or like, I'd never left America. I barely left New Jersey. You know, I was like a fearful kid who just like followed my boyfriend, who I didn't much like, to the middle of America, because I thought the most I could hope for would be like to be like a really people-pleasing wife to someone who had his own career. And I'd probably be overweight forever, but like, and he didn't like that, you know, he specifically told me that he didn't find me attractive, but like, I couldn't hope for more than that, you know? I was grateful that he was honest with me, that he didn't think I was attractive. And I couldn't really function that well. I had like a really flexible research job. I researched meditation because I couldn't sit still long enough to actually meditate. So I figured maybe if I just research what happens in the brain when other people meditate, I'll get some kind of benefit from that. In fact, I was just getting crazier. And yeah, I mean, here today, I packed like I'm just so excited to eat my lunch. It's so delicious. I feel that way every time I get to eat a meal. And I actually have to leave at some point slightly early, because I'm going with my husband, who has a British accent, to go see a show like at a theater. And it's just, I don't like myself. This sounds like too much. Why does someone get to have like an amazing, supportive, wonderful husband? We live in like a really beautiful place, and there's woods everywhere. I mean, it's literally the like, I don't know, the nerdy intellectual 4-year-old Liat,
Yeah.
thank you, would have designed this life for me. You know, my inner child that is like a little bit Marmite would have designed this life for me. And it's only because of all of you. It's only because of this miraculous program. And there's probably a lot of things I wish I would have said, but I didn't. So hopefully something came through. And I'm just really grateful to be in person. We made it through the pandemic. And I'm kind of grateful for the pandemic because I'm abstinent. Well, I think I'm only abstinent because of that. So I'll leave it there. I don't know which time I left, but yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you.